We begin tonight with new video of the Trump administration's latest move against Venezuela. Attorney General Pam Bondi put it out this evening, shows American forces boarding an oil tanker, coming down lines from hovering choppers, making their way to the bridge and seizing control of the vessel. Quoting from the Attorney General's social media post, today the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Homeland Security Investigations, and the U.S. Coast Guard, with support from the Department of War, executed a seizure warrant for a crude oil tanker used to transport sanctioned oil from Venezuela and Iran. A senior U.S. official tells CNN it had Venezuelan crude on board, was sailing in international waters, and no one was injured in the boarding operation. Now, the video came out just a short time after this from the president setting the stage.
Hey, welcome into Courageous Media. Really appreciate everybody rolling up. Thanks so much for being here. We have got all sorts of news. We've got some news on the seized oil tanker, which I'm sure everybody has heard about. The left is absolutely going nuts. We've got a great clip from extreme deranged TDS nutcase Kyle Kulinski as he really goes off on the president, only to be fact-checked by none other than The View. You're going to love this. But I did want to get into this video because I am a big proponent of the Monroe Doctrine. I say we stop fighting these ridiculous foreign wars 10,000 miles away from our shores and go back to the Monroe Doctrine, which basically says North and South America are ours. If you will not be our enemy and try to intervene in any local politics, and we consider anything between North and South America to be local politics. Nope, no socialism, no communism, no CCP, no Russia. Get out. And I love the fact that this is where Trump is focused. Let me know what you think in the comments. Really appreciate everybody rolling up. Got me, Coach, in the house. Thanks so much for being here. And yep, we are going to you're going to check out Soy Beta Mel. But first, let's check out Donald Trump as he talks about as he goes right up and says it out loud that we seized an oil tanker. This is great stuff. Check this out.
As you probably know, we've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, a large tanker, very large. Largest one ever seized, actually. And other things are happening, so you'll be seeing that later, and you'll be talking about that later with some other people.
He said the tanker was seized, quote, for very good reason, and when asked what would happen to the oil, he replied, we keep it, I guess. Late today, the Venezuelan government called the seizure a, quote, act of international piracy, calling it a, quote, deliberate plan to plunder our energy resources. Venezuela's leader, Nicolas Maduro, also weighed in shortly before the president announced the operation.
Our message to the people of the United States remains the same. Peace. Peace above all else. No to crazy war. No to bloodshed for oil. No to war for oil, the recipe for eternal wars.
Well, the administration, as you know, now has a full
I love that Maduro's out there stumping for peace. Peace, please, peace, please do not invade our country. Please do not destroy us, because the United States could, with barely lifting a finger, essentially wipe Venezuela off the map. Now, that's not what we want to do. That's not really the goal. And this is not a war for oil. This is a war over drugs. This is a war over narco terror. This is a war over the fact that Venezuela has enabled, has funded, has trained, has assisted all of the narco terrorists that have killed 100,000 Americans a year, that have fostered drug and human trafficking trades in the United States, that have helped bring into our borders over 1 million national security threats. Not only South American, Venezuelan terrorists, but Middle Eastern terrorists, Chinese Communist Party Special Forces members, members of Special Forces from other places, like Russia, like other places. So they have helped foster the massive influx of illegal national security threat migrants into our country. At the same time, their drugs have killed 100,000 Americans a year, specifically fentanyl. So I have no problem with this whatsoever. And as it turns out, neither does The View. But before we get into that, you've got to see Kyle Kulinski as an example of the libs that are absolutely melting down over it. This is great stuff. Check this out.
Hey guys, got some big breaking news here for you. So apparently the United States just seized a Venezuelan oil tanker. Now understand something, this is completely illegal. We have no standing and no right to do this. And at the same time, we're also flying US fighter jets in a provocative manner in Venezuelan airspace. And this comes right on the heels of Trump repeatedly saying that we're gonna start attacking the land, we're gonna do stuff on the land in Venezuela. He also came out and said that stay tuned because more is coming. So illegally seizing a Venezuelan oil tanker, which by the way, that is just too on the nose. That is too on the nose. Because what have people been saying? Oh, you're not actually going to war with Venezuela and Maduro because he's, the head of some fake drug cartel. The reason why you're doing it is because you want to steal the oil. You want a US puppet regime in there. You want to steal the oil. And what better way to prove that than to seize a Venezuelan oil tanker.
Oh my gosh, these people are absolutely lunatics. They are completely Trump deranged. They can't see the forest through the trees. He couldn't see his nose through him with a mirror on his dang face. It's absolutely unreal. This is not a war over oil. Now, there have been plenty of those, believe me. The entire Middle Eastern $20 trillion campaign over the last 20 years has essentially been two things: a war for oil and a war essentially to prop up Israel and their interest in the region, when we should have stayed out of it completely. But back then, 30, 40 years ago, before we ever got involved in the $20 trillion campaign, when we got involved in the Middle East, we didn't have the ability to drill and supply the oil that we can today with technology. Now, we can essentially, the United States can be the largest oil producer in the world, on the planet. We don't need Venezuelan oil. We don't need Middle Eastern oil. We can do it all ourselves, essentially. No, this is a war over narco-terrorism. And it might even be a war over regime change in Venezuela. That I'm not sure about. But we're not fighting a war yet. Now, when Trump says that they're going to take action on land, he's talking about against the cartels and against the drug trade. I am all for it. I am all for President Trump going full, clear and present danger on the narco terrorists, on the cartels, on the narco states. I have no problem with that. Full, clear and present danger. If you ever seen the movie, go see the movie. Harrison Ford, back when he was a normal human being, but great movie, talking about doing exactly this, taking the fight on a military level to the cartels, to the drug traders. So I have no problem if the CIA and Defense Intelligence, if they can identify supply depots, if they can identify production facilities, take them out. Use a drone. It's very simple. So I have no problem with that. But so Kyle Kulinski goes crazy talking about it's illegal. It's illegal. It's illegal. Well, guess what, Kyle? Even The View is fact checking your ridiculous take on this. And this absolutely made me laugh when I saw this. You've got to check it. You've got to check this out from The View about this whole situation.
But this move specifically on this tanker might be a good thing. And I say that because my first reaction when Trump's involved in a lot of the people he puts in office, you're like, what the hell are they doing? There's no faith in the system. There's no transparency, especially after all these boats were attacked. But this is supposedly, and I actually kind of deep dove into this topic about sanctioned oil. And it is diverting oil that could be going to China, Russia,
and Iran.
The European and Iran, who are not, they're adversarial nations to us. This is something the European Union has sanctions with them. Canada has sanctions. The US has sanctions. They came in with a warrant on this ship. There was actually a warrant to go after this ship because what they're trying to do.
Quaint.
Well, no, but that you got to call them when they're
a federal
judge do it. When you look, when we criticize all
true.
the time about the illegal things, you got to call them. This was a legal seizure of an oil tanker, and a lot of what they're saying is that this is also going to de-incentivize black market ships from stopping in Venezuela and taking this oil to enemy nations. So this actually might be a good thing. Sadly, wrapped in a Trump packaging, which makes it really hard to see that
So
point.
if they took the oil to enemy nations, what does that mean?
Well, it was supplying some terrorist regimes for years now.
And they're sanctioned by the U.S. government. It is unlawful. I would say I see this
But so you
very...
could just blow up all the ships
It's
that are
not
doing
blowing
it?
it up. We
this
seized
is not
it.
Well, whatever.
I
This
didn't
isn't
even
the drug
resist,
boats.
by the way.
I love it. Even The View is telling Kyle Kalinske that he is a moron, that this is completely legal. The oil has been sanctioned not only by the United States, but also by the European Union. This is oil from sanctioned terrorist states. It's Iranian oil, it's Venezuelan oil. It's been sanctioned. It's not allowed to be traded on the open market. So Trump found a sanctioned boat, an illegal tanker carrying sanctioned oil and said, yeah, seize this thing. Absolutely. Pull out Maduro's finances right out from underneath him. The same thing they have tried to do to Putin. And the reason why Russia is on the verge of bankruptcy right now, because no one can trade in his oil. And the only people that were buying it were China and India. And now it looks like India is out of that game. All right. I'm going to try this. Got me, coach. So I don't know that I can do a split screen, but we can do this. So here's Kyle Kalinske, soy boy, TDS knucklehead, Kyle Kalinske. There he is. And we've also got the British Bulldog. Here we go. So they actually do kind of look alike, don't they? Except one's got actual muscles and another one, as you so adequately put, is a soy boy TDS knucklehead. Anyway, so we've got Trump absolutely going after Maduro, and even The View admits he's right. This is just classic stuff. Resnap in the house. Thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate you rolling up. The View has Christmas trees up. Yeah, I don't know if they call them Christmas trees on The View. They probably call them like, pagan holiday ritual trees or something. I don't know, because The View is absolutely crazy. They're completely TDS. MD168, thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate everybody. All right, so while this is all going on, we've got other fantastic news. It's breaking news, but it's not of the same salacious variety as the United States seizing an oil tanker. No. This is all about the U.S. economy and the fact that the U.S. economy is absolutely starting to roar under President Trump. So check this out. This is great stuff. We're going to get into this whole, all the economic changes that we've seen now just in the last few weeks that signal not only could Trump absolutely own the midterms, but in the next 12 months, we could see a major boon to the U.S. economy. Check this out.
Trumps are Jimmy Carter and Joe Biden. You can look at the chart of inflation over the last 50 years, right? And you'll see two big bumps. On top of those big bumps are Jimmy Carter and Joe Biden. And those cliffs that fall off are Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump. Your dollar is worth 20% less right now today because of 21% CPI inflation under Joe Biden. Your wages are $3,000 less because your average salary and your real American wages went down by $3,000. That's a Joe Biden thing. You can.
Welcome back to Courageous Media. So we got great breaking news. This gentleman is absolutely right. I love the faces on the knuckleheads on the Abby Phillips show as they try to do anything to debunk what he's saying, because he's 100% correct. Your dollar is worth 20% less because of Joe Biden, because of the CPI index over the last 4 years, and Trump is reversing it. That's what they don't want to admit. That's what they can't admit to. That's what the propaganda globalist media will never admit to, because that would be admitting that Trump is absolutely right. And that's the last thing that they want to do. But I want to dive in because we've got Scott Jennings and his crew completely owning this situation, calling out for what it is. And the fact that prices are on the decline, the economy is getting better. No one wants to admit it from the propaganda media, but we're absolutely going to go there. Really appreciate everybody rolling up. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let us know you're here. And if you haven't, please share Courageous Media with everybody that you know. Here we go.
part naturally occurring due to supply chain bottlenecks and because the COVID once-in-a-lifetime pandemic occurred. And yes, it occurred.
Like we're on trees? Or?
Yeah, okay, so because of supply chain bottlenecks, that's what I'm talking about. There was
of the president's tariffs policy.
I know all of human history started in January of this year, but I could take you back 4 years when input prices for agriculture, from fuel to materials to you name it, went through the roof. I know you know a little something about it because you worked under Joe Biden when it all happened. So these farmers, they're in a 10-month period here with Trump, but they just came out of a 4-month period where they were dying under the inflationary and affordability crisis caused by Democrats. They support this president. They like what he did today, and they're going to give him a little latitude to get out of it.
I don't think that's accurate when you hear from farm bureaus.
You don't think it's accurate that inflation happened under Biden?
I'm sorry, Donald Trump talked about.
Overall, if you look at the Fed survey, people are happy and excited about the job market and the labor market in the United States. That's a good thing. And if you talk to Scott Bessent, he'll tell you that they think in 2026, we're going to see a boom in jobs and growth in this country, thanks to some of the structural changes they made this year. So they're expressing optimism and exuding optimism, and that's what they got to do going into an election.
When you look at overall inflation for the first year of Trump versus Biden, Biden, overall inflation was up 4.3%.
Now realize this is a great chart because he's talking about the first year of their presidency. This is even before Biden's major inflation of 8% hit. That was basically year 2 of his presidency. So this is giving Biden undue credit because he fell off the inflation cliff about a year after this. But check this out.
Higher than Trump, just up 1.6%. Groceries under Biden in that time, up 3.8%. With Trump, up 1.3. And then when it comes to gas, this is crazy. Biden up 24.4%. With Trump, it is actually down 5.4%. That is where the biggest difference is. And we heard from the HUD Secretary, Scott Turner, this afternoon. They are raising.
We are going to get into this because the energy prices are not only their own statistic, but they are a leading indicator of general price declines across the board. Why? Because energy goes into everything. Energy is a cost of production and a cost of distribution for every single other product. You need electricity and energy to make anything. You need electricity and gas to distribute anything in this country. You lower the production and distribution costs, you can lower costs across the board.
To cut red tape for construction projects, because the belief among officials here is that if housing is the #1 place where people are getting killed when it comes to affordability, if people are cutting red tape and able to build more houses and apartments, then the prices will come down. Pretty basic supply and demand in play. Will.
So we've got fantastic economic news. We're going to talk about the prices that have come down seriously during the Trump administration. We're not even a year in. Realize that Trump took office officially about 40 days from now, a year ago. So we're not even a year into this thing, and we're looking at 2026 possibly being an economic boom year. Check this out from the White House.
Well, the way that in the end, with an eye on the horizon, that this problem gets fixed is that real wage growth goes up enough so that huge 23% hole that was dug by Joe Biden is a thing of the past, because people have money in their pockets, enough money in their pockets to bring their real standard of living back up. The real standard of living in the U.S., the purchasing power of ordinary Americans has gone up by about $1,200 so far this year. If you look at the great data on Friday that said that real wages were up 2.5% over the last few months, that happens when you get positive supply in the economy, and that's what drives growth up and prices down. And so what you want to do is lock that kind of gain in where you're seeing real wages coming from positive supply shocks. And if you do that, then just as in the 90s when we had positive supply shocks from the computer, and Alan Greenspan was willing to sort of let the economy run a little bit hotter, we have an opportunity with AI and all the productivity that we're seeing to do so again, but to do so with a great deal of caution as you watch the inflation numbers go by. Because the one thing we know is that inflation hurts everybody in the economy. And you saw that in the last election. I'm sure the last election was very much an inflation election.
So there's two things that Trump and the Trump administration are trying to do. Where they can, they want to drive prices actually down. Now, you realize that you can't just lower prices across the entire economy, because that you get into a deflationary cycle. And that is a major economic problem. Remember stagflation of the Jimmy Carter era, where a lot of prices were up, but there was no growth at all in the economy. You want to be able to balance growth in the economy with some level of rising prices so that everything kind of goes up and to the right. But you can't have prices outstrip real wage growth. So what he's saying is we've already seen $1,200 on average wage growth for the average American worker in the first 11 months of the Trump presidency. And it's going to get even better because they're looking to grow their way out of the economic malaise that the Biden administration caused. Realize that when you have inflation, when Biden was running 8% year over year inflation, that is absolutely massive. And prices shot up 30, 40, 50% in some cases for food and gas and others. Some of those prices you can actually drive back down to normal inflationary cycles. But some of them you cannot. Some of those prices are not elastic enough to ever come back down. They're not going to decrease. You can slow their rate of increase or even freeze it. But some of those prices will never really permanently come back down. The only way to overcome that is real wage growth, where people are making more now than they were last year in terms of real wages, wages adjusted for inflation, so that they can get back on top of the spending earnings cycle and get back into positive territory. And that's what Trump and the Trump administration are doing, and it's already working. Realize that tariffs are already having their effect. We're already getting the Fed to get in line. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Powell's going to be gone in a few months. But check this out. First, let's check out the fact that the tariffs are actually working. And I really appreciate, again, everybody being here. Please smash that like button for me. It really helps us out with YouTube. When you hit the like button, when you subscribe to the channel, when you watch our videos all the way through, it's the greatest help you can give us. All right, here we go.
Minus 52.8 billion. That's a better, lower trade deficit than we expected. We were looking for a number closer to 62 billion, and that follows a revised minus 59 billion. Minus 52 billion would be the lightest going back to, wow, we're really going back. Well, my records go back to 1992, and to find a smaller number than minus 52 billion, we're all the way back to June of 2020. 236,000 is initial jobless.
So we've got 230, you've got job growth, you've got the trade deficit falling to its lowest level in 5 years. And that's going to get even lower. Tariffs are working. Tariffs are starting to structurally change the economy and repatriate American jobs and money. At the same time, you've got Trump attacking the two most elastic prices that he can attack. Now, the one he has a great deal of control over, and that's oil, and gasoline, and we're going to get into that. But first, I want to show you that even his internal economic pressure has resulted in beneficial moves by the Fed on interest rates, which directly affects the cost of housing. So here we have the Fed lowers rates for a third time in a row. They lowered rates again in a continued effort to keep the labor market, despite objections from several key officials. So we're getting down into, for a third consecutive time, to a range between 3.5 to 3.75 for the Fed lending rate, which is going to bring down mortgage rates, which is going to bring down mortgage costs. So that's one elastic price item that Trump can influence. That is the price of housing. Because as mortgage rates go down, the cost of buying a home goes down, the cost of renting a home can go down. You've got all sorts of issues that are now playing in. Plus, we had the Trump administration talking about the fact that they are going to reduce red tape on housing starts in order to spur more housing construction in America to further drive the actual price of housing down, not just the price of the payment. So you get principal prices down, you get interest payments down, and you overall lower the rate, the cost of housing in America, which is huge, especially considering that home ownership among people under 30 is at its lowest rate in almost 50 years. Now, check this out. Because at the same time, Trump is lowering prices across the board. And he's doing it primarily outside of housing by getting energy prices down. Check this out.
I inherited a mess. I inherited a total mess. Prices were at an all-time high when I came in. Prices are coming down substantially. Look at energy. You and I discussed before the interview, energy. Energy has come down incredibly. When energy comes down, everything, because it's so much bigger than any other subject, but energy has come down incredibly. Prices are all coming down. It's been 10 months. It's amazing what we've done. If you think of gasoline a gallon, they had it at $4.50, almost $5. You go to some of the states, you had it at $6. We hit 3 states 2 days ago, $1.99 a gallon. When that happens, everything comes down. Now, everything is coming down with beef.
Now, just to offer proof of that, Trump's not talking out his butt. Here we go. We have got actual proof from Oklahoma of gas prices sub $2. Check this out. This is great stuff.
There is no way I'm seeing what I'm seeing right now. More Oklahoma, $1.99 a gallon. Unbelievable. I can't believe my eyes right now.
And as further data points, we've got the average gas prices in America are now below $3 for the first time in like 6 years. So here you've got gas prices plummet across the nation in preparation for an economic boom in 2026. We'll get into that. The U.S. average price for a gallon dropped to $2.95 across all 50 states, with 35 now reporting gasoline prices below $3 a gallon. Here in Texas, we are significantly below $3. I've seen gas prices at $2.14 a gallon in many places. Here in the Dallas area, it's absolutely phenomenal. When just 2 years ago, we were paying close to $4 a gallon here in Texas, let alone what California is seeing. California is still sky high because of their idiotic Green New Deal policies that essentially tax gasoline out the wazoo and force specific formulations for California, which drive the price up. But overall, Trump has lowered the cost of gasoline by over $1 a gallon. That is phenomenal news for your regular average blue collar worker in America. Now, this is before even any of the big, beautiful bill takes effect, which starts to take effect January 1st, which is going to further spur economic growth. Check this out.
On the big, beautiful bill, what they were trying to do is to say, just be patient. Starting in January, you'll start to see things like this. The no tax on tips and overtime, there's a max reduction for tips is $25,000. So imagine if you are somebody who uses tips as part of your salary or to make your living, that will have an impact. The senior deduction, you have to be 65 years old. It phases out at $75,000. But again, for people who are saying gas prices, which are lower, but that food prices are higher, that it's hard for them, that might help as well. There's a no tax on car loan interest. Now, that can be helpful, but what might be even more helpful is what they announced last week, which is they're doing away with some of the EPA rules on these car and fuel mileage. That actually will help bring the cost of cars down probably even more. And then a child tax credit expansion. That's very bipartisan. A lot of people like this. A lot of people love to see good economic news, but I would say Josh Holmes, our next guest here. Josh, you on
we big beautiful economic news even before the big beautiful bill takes effect. Check this out from Secretary Lutnick talking about what we can expect in 2026, which is going to be a major issue for the Democrats as we roll into the midterms at the end of 2026, especially if they can get the economy humming. Check this out.
Both sides. I think you bring affordability, you focus on housing and bring the affordability of housing down. You focus on the farms and bring the price of groceries down. And you bring down interest rates. You remember, if you bring down interest rates and you bring down energy, you're really grabbing people's pocketbooks and putting more money in them. You've got taxes coming down, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on our Social Security, things like that. These things, and you drive GDP growth, real GDP growth, not the middling growth that we've gotten used to, this sort of 2% nonsense. This economy, the $30 trillion U.S. economy, can grow 4%. It can grow 5%. And I think under President Trump, you're going to see it grow 6%. And people think, oh, these things aren't possible. Lower rates, lower energy. You're going to have that growth. You're going to fix America doing both sides, raising wages, great jobs coming into this country, bringing down the cost of energy, bringing down the cost of interest rates. You're going to have Americans feel good about the United States of America under Donald Trump. And that's what we're playing for. We're playing for fixing both sides of the spectrum. Both sides.
Absolutely. Realize that you're going to have a confluence of events, and I'm very excited about 2026. You're going to have a confluence of events that start to take place once we get past the Christmas holidays. You're going to have the big, beautiful bill take effect with all the tax cuts, the additional tax cuts over and above what we've already got. But they make the rest of the tax cuts permanent, so now businesses can plan on that. At the same time, you've got Trump and the Trump administration working to lower interest rates. You've got the Fed actually getting on board now, and they're driving interest rates down. They're doing it slowly, they're doing it conservatively, but they're getting interest rates down, which lowers the cost of housing, not only for purchasing houses, but also rentals, because it drives the cost of everything down. It also drives the cost of all your capital infusion down, so the companies can grow, so the companies can build and do things at lower cost. At the same time, they're lowering energy phenomenally. Gas prices, oil prices, the cost of electricity, all of that is coming down, which then bleeds into the rest of the supply chain. When you lower interest rates and you lower energy costs, everything becomes cheaper to make. Food, lumber, machines, all of it, even AI, which is heavily dependent on electricity to drive data centers, all of those costs come down when energy and interest rates come down. And now you couple that with the trillions of dollars of commitments that Trump has gotten for companies to invest in the United States in order to avoid the tariffs. You've got the makings of a phenomenal, perfect storm to drive economic growth, while at the same time, the tariffs that are there are churning out dollars that are helping us drive down our deficits and even start to pay off the national debt. It's absolutely amazing. Growth of 4, 5, or 6% in this economy will supercharge everything, and it'll once again put America at the forefront of all economic activity in the world. It'll stabilize the dollar. It'll means that this idea of no more petrodollars, no more American dollar reserve currency, none of that will be in conversation at least for the next 3 to 5 years, which is phenomenal. Let me know what you think in the comments. Michael, yep, you're correct. Energy is key, 100%. Hey, thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate everybody rolling up today. Please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. If you like what we're doing, please share Courageous Media with everybody that you know. And if you really like it, would you consider joining us as a member on YouTube of the Courageous Army? Just hit that join button. Really appreciate everybody being here. Remember that God is good and he is sovereign. Until I catch you next time, have a great day.